Hello, internet. How's everybody out there today? So everyone who's not I'd say sleeping in because I always consider any time that you're not sleeping until like 2 on a Sunday, that means you're waking up early. How's everyone who's woken up early with us doing today? Hello, Akiko. Hello, Keith. Hello, Leslie. I'm joined today by the lovely, fantabulous, and incomparable Callie Wright. Callie, thank you for. I know we've already chatted for 15 minutes, but thank you for coming on and joining me today.
Yes, thank you for having me. This
So
this will be fun.
someone just commented my doctor is an anti-vaxxer. I'm so disappointed.
Oh
Oh
my
my god.
God.
Who
Good
we're
Lord.
it's fun going back and forth. I'm new to having guests on this, so we're in beta testing mode of me trying to figure
Yeah,
out how to handle my own brain, a guest, and the
totally.
chat.
I
It's
was just
my
saying that's a hell of a note to start the stream on, right? Like
it's
we'll just
yeah.
start it light.
Started on, yeah, my doctor's an anti-vaxxer. Well, get a new doctor. It's as one thing that has to be said as soon as it happens. Mom has entered the chat. My, it's my
Simon.
Mom. There is a Mom. It's Mom will adopt all of you whose moms suck. I'm just saying. If your mom's a Trumper, if your mom is just my mom is there for you. Just saying. She has lots of extra kids. That is my. There's there that's just I'm trying to keep up with where the chat is with all my usuals who are coming on here. Anyways, so as mentioned earlier, so we have some things to discuss. It's
We have some things.
we have some things that we have to talk about because the world is a fucking dumpster fire and we can't even count on Joe goddamn Rawling to not fuck it up. Jesus. So if you aren't, a couple of people said, Callie, your sound is really low. I can hear you just fine. I'm gonna check if you guys are out there and you can't hear. Check your sound. I can hear you fine, but then again, I've got my headphones on quite loud. So, but anyways, if you're not aware of the Joe Rawling situation, let's have a chat about. Do you want to give the description of this, or do you want me to, or shall
Uh,
we? It's so she had a history for a while of like clicking like on some, shall we say, questionable tweets. Some tweets that you're like, that's a little
yeah.
turfery-ish. And like it just like for a while a lot of people had like some people had an eyebrow raised and some people are like, we're writing her off now. And eventually she just like word vomited out this long rant and it was bad. Would you like to, or shall I? It's
Honestly, I only read like half of it.
it's
Um, and I mean, honestly, there was nothing new. Like the fact that the thing that was new was that it was coming from her, right? Like
mm,
she didn't actually contribute anything new to the discourse. Like she was just like
no,
vomiting turf talking points.
yeah,
But yeah, I read through like half of it and I was like, oh, this is everything I've heard before, but from a person who has like 5,000 times
yeah,
the audience of anyone who has said it before.
yeah.
So I
This
think
is
that
someone.
was really the
Oh
newly
yeah.
horrifying thing about it.
That's yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. It's like this is someone Susan Clark just asked, are your headphones cat ears? Indeed they are. They
Mega
were
cute.
they were on a lightning sale on Amazon. And look, like normally I have this whole setup with this and a really good set of headphones, and I'm sure the sound is marginally better. But this way I'm not like constantly banging into a microphone stand. That and I have cute kitty ears. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Oh,
I'm
oh
cranking my
my
mic a little bit for y'all, so I should be a little bit little.
cool. How it's
J.K. Rowling is who we're talking
yeah.
about. The
Somebody just
question in the
asked who
chat.
are we talking about?
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling. Yeah. It's so here was what the letter like basically said. She went on this whole long rant talking about how giving trans. She seemed to think that giving trans people and specifically trans women rights was going to take away rights from cis women. And as a cis woman, I would like to say it is not. Like it doesn't take away from womanhood. I don't understand that point of view. It's hard to wrap one's head around if you're not a fucking bigot. I don't understand that. Like it's, I mean, some of the things she said in there were just so off the rails. Like, she tried making the commentary that a lot of women a lot of trans men, so people who are assigned female at birth and transition, are just, they're autistic. Some of the phrasing was that they're autistic lesbians who just need therapy, and I'm like, Joanne, wow, these are the types of things people used to say about gay people. We're really going back that far.
Yeah,
yikes!
I mean, it's one of those things that starts in a halfway understandable place, because when you are a person of a marginalized experience of any kind, in her case as a woman, you want to kind of like draw boundaries around that experience, right? And say like, we experience this thing, you do not experience this thing. So we are, we are this group who experiences this sort of thing. And then you start making rules about who's allowed in and who isn't allowed in. Yeah. And this is something that like almost every social group does to one degree or another, right? And that's like, I get it, because like, I don't want people who aren't trans in a trans support group. I don't want people who aren't queer in queer spaces, generally speaking. Like, obviously there's play there, but then all of the sudden that turns into, everyone who's not like me in this one specific way is like not only the right kind of whatever, but now also like actively evil and taking away from my rights and my status as whatever group.
Yikes.
So yeah. And then in the chat, the discourse that like, I was a little bummed that didn't happen enough, because the anti-trans stuff was really gross. But then to using autistic as a slur and trying to say like, oh, these people are autistic, as if that is an inherently negative thing to be. Like,
there are plenty of autistic people who don't transition. Like, I don't think autistic is the thing that makes you go, I think this is not my correct gender identity. I don't think that's what does it, Joanne. I'm just saying, since she prefers JK, I'm going to refer to her as Joanne. I'm not respecting her chosen noun for herself.
Well, and that's to John's comment in the chat. Who cares what JKR has to say? And that's this kind of the problem, right? Like some random turf that no one is listening to shouting on a street corner. I don't care, right?
Yeah, but she has how many millions of followers on Twitter?
I think like 14.5 million followers on Twitter. And the thing that horrifies me, and I have a lot of empathy for folks who are Harry Potter fans. That fandom just kind of missed me. Like, I don't have any feelings one way or the other about it. I'm a Star Trek nerd. But the thing that really horrified me is I'm thinking like, there are a whole lot of people who are hearing these arguments from her first. Yeah. Like, they're not only learning about these concepts from her, but learning those arguments in association with those concepts, right? And so that's just an incredible amount of damage to be done from someone like her, as opposed to just like some random asshole on Twitter with 50 followers.
Yeah, and like, I think like when we're also used to, when we see this from someone who's in the public eye, we're also kind of used to it being from, say, the Ben Shapiros of the world, the people who this is in line, this tracks with what they do. Seeing it from someone who, like J.K. Rowling, who used to, like, we used to at least see, the writing and the type of things she did as being a little bit more progressive. It's been kind of a gut punch to be like, oh, someone can be great on a lot of things and then be really shitty on something else.
Well, and I mean, there's a lot of discourse in the fandom. And like I said, I'm not super familiar with Harry Potter, so I can't speak to it from a position of knowledge. But like, there are a lot of people who have been saying that, like, there are some pretty bad, like, anti-Semitic tropes and stereotypes written in. And so,
these are things like, I didn't see what I was
talking about this for years. Where the hell have you been?
Yeah.
I get
it. These are definitely things I didn't see when I was younger. And now I'm like, man, she went there with the goblins at Gringotts, didn't she? Like, this is the only thing she knew how to do for bankers? Really? But no, there's a lot of little stuff that she's like, I could have done anything other than the redheaded family for the poor people. But I went with this stereotype.
Well, and even more so, and this like speaks to so much in our culture, that like the idea of hero worship, like, you know, people who read Harry Potter, all of those sorts of things, and have these positive feelings about it, then develop those same positive feelings for the person who wrote it, and that person gets put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And there's this hero worship thing where people are just ready and willing at the smallest thing to just give infinite benefit of the doubt, right? And and so we see this over and over and over again, where people from a marginalized group say, hey, this person is doing and saying some really, really shady stuff. And the people who are into the fandom are like, oh no, that's not really what it is. Yeah. And then eventually the person comes out and does it so hard that nobody can deny it anymore. And the rest of us are back here like, we've been fucking saying this for years. Like, when are you going to decide to listen to us? You know what I mean?
It's like, I mean, like I'd seen, and I'll admit it, I was like, I'd seen her clicking like on some of those tweets. And like, I'm someone who, I have to admit this, and like, this is not me admitting to anything turfy. Don't worry, you don't have to brace for having to cancel me. No, I'll admit, like, if I ever click like, if you ever see me click like on something on Twitter that you're like, what the fuck? And it's at like 3 a.m., it's because I'm scrolling on Twitter and I've literally fallen asleep with the phone on my face. Like, I've definitely clicked liked on things that I was like, wait, I did that? Like, I'm amazed. I have never covfefed myself with that. I'm shocked. Like, if I ever do, just right here and now, the couple hundred of you who are watching at this moment, and over the course of it, however many are going to watch, you've seen me admit to this. But like, I was at first, when I saw she clicked, you know, and I'll admit it, I saw that she clicked like on a few of them. I'm like, you know, maybe she doesn't know, maybe like, and I was trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, which was not the right thing to do. I should have given my trans friends who were like, no, this is like, and but like, as soon as, you know, when she came out with that letter, it was like, oh fuck, she just yeeted herself into the sun with that. Like, and no one can, you know, no one can give her the benefit of the doubt anymore. If they are, they're turfy themselves.
And finding out the plot of her newest book kind of makes it all make more sense.
Right? Like, and here's the thing: she's probably still going to claim, "I am not a TERF. I'm standing up for women's rights." It's like, you know, I don't understand that point of view. Like, the whole like. Part of it is dressing up as women to like if y'all out there have missed it, the plot of her new book is that a man is dressing up as a woman to attack women. Like, this is not what trans people are doing. They're dressing as their gender to, you know,
and this thought is not original to me. I saw someone on Twitter say this, but the fact that anyone thinks that men have to dress up as women to get away with hurting women.
Oh, like, my God.
As a society, we just kind of let that happen.
Yeah.
And men don't have to work real hard to get away with doing that in our society. Oh, TERF stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist.
Yeah. Doug Rickard.
Yeah.
It's there are a couple different terms that we use for basically somebody who's anti-trans, but like, technically someone does not have to be a radical feminist to be anti-trans. There was another term for it other than TERF, but like, TERF is just the one we go for.
Seen a couple, and I can't remember.
What was it, dear? Oh, just transphobe.
Oh, transphobe for sure.
Transphobe, yeah.
But there was one that somebody came up with the acronym FART, and I
life of me
cannot remember what it stands for.
Dear, do you remember what FART stands for in the anti-trans thing? He'll have it in a minute, I'm sure. Dang it.
I'm Googling it now while we're doing it. Feminism appropriating reactionary transphobe.
Nice.
Yep, love that.
Feminism appropriating radical. You know, let's call them, because people are like TERF's a slur. Okay, I'm going to call you a fart. I will.
Well, and for me, it's like, I want to. And you have to be careful about how you navigate
Dan
this.
Keeling just commented, shitbag is kind of a decent all-encompassing one.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm a big fan of that, Dan.
We will call them shitbags.
And part of me wants to be like, yes, TERF is a slur, and it's one you deserve, you fucking asshole.
Yeah.
But I don't want to you have to wait. You have to wade so carefully into that discourse. I tend to not.
I feel like
engage with those folks.
I feel like slurs have to be something for an immutable quality, for something that you can't change about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I am genetic. Like you do a DNA test on me, and I am half Jewish. I cannot get rid of that. You throw the K word at me, and that is a goddamn slur. Like that's the thing that's not going anywhere. But TERF, you can learn to not be a shitty human being. I'm just yeah.
I'm kidding. You can.
It doesn't happen often. Let's try it. I mean, but in case not enough people learn how to be, unshitty human beings, please remember to vote this November. I'm just saying, we gotta vote some of the unshitty. I'm always try to put that information below so that people remember to register to vote.
Andrea said you can't slur when punching up, and I think that's totally correct.
Yeah, basically, like I don't see how it's a slur to say exactly what someone is, but like it's like they'll try to use weasel words to kind of get around it, because she'll say, I want them to have all the rights to do what, to live, to whatever, and then like anything before the but is bullshit. Yep. Like anything before the but is always, because like afterwards that it comes into, they can't go into my bath, they can't go in, they can't do this, they can't, and it's like, what things are they allowed to do for life? Like when's a trans woman who has, who's been on hormones, who is passing, and I mean, I understand passing is a loaded term, but like when is a trans woman allowed to just go and use the bathroom for their correct gender, when without Joanne being like, they're clearly here to kill me and not to pee.
Right.
Like I don't know how her first thought in her mind is, I was assaulted by a man once, so a trans person is clearly the same. Beyond me. But like,
and it's hard because I mean, especially now, but like before all of this, like TERFs are dangerous, but generally speaking, there weren't a ton of them. And I feel like she's helping push it far more into the mainstream than it was before. Because I have met so many people who hold anti-trans views that are honestly ignorant. Like they just don't know. And they heard this thing on the news once, and like, I am like, depending on my emotional state, I'm almost endlessly willing to have conversations with those folks. And I've done that plenty of times before, and I explain things just like, oh, okay. Yeah, that does make sense to me, But the problem is like when you have like a blank space where the concept of transness goes, if you meet someone who is trans and you have that conversation, you're filling the blank space with the correct information.
Yeah.
If you have a blank space and you get it filled with TERFy bullshit, then you have that much more work to do to bring someone around, right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's, because like, some folks in the chat have mentioned something about like, talking about it more, giving her more attention, that kind of stuff. And the problem is like, we have to talk, like when it's someone with that big of a platform, like, and that much influence.
It's not like somebody with 20 followers on Twitter spouting off of the mouth and us going, we need to have a chat about Jared.
Right.
Let's talk about Jared 02971. We need to get to the bottom of what's up with Jared 02971 now. Like, no, it's like J.K. Rowling is going to get her message out, even if we talk about her or not. So we need to talk about her.
I was at the bar with some asshole named Tom last night, and he said,
God, Tom will be the end of us. The end. The end. Oh my God. Let's see, Melissa Naka. It's just one of my loveliest Patreons has commented, I feel like JK's knowledge of transgender, etc., is about as useful as a condom poked with holes. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
She's I wish, it's my mom just commented, she already has the attention. And that's the thing, is she already has, like, anything that she writes about this is gonna be news. Like, she wrote that letter that like another however many, intellectual because me stutter pretty today. Intellectual, intellectual luminaries signed. That was like, and it's like they made that thing so vague.
Oh, the Harper's letter.
Oh God. And it's funny because after people posted that, I posted my favorite Harper's letter, which is called "Who Goes Nazi." Have you ever read that?
No.
It was from the 1940s, and it was this woman talking about going to a dinner party and figuring out who at the party would, when the time comes, goes nuts.
Okay.
It's
Right.
and it holds up really, really well. It's
Of
such
course.
oh yeah, like you're reading it and it's like she's talking, and like one of the lines in there, like you hear it and you read it and you almost hear it in Elle Wood's voice from Legally Blonde, and it's basically nice people just don't go Nazi. They just don't. And like the point is, people who are satisfied with their lives and are good people and would be satisfied with their life, whether they have a ton of money or whether they're, just satisfied with their job. Like, good people don't go Nazi was the whole crux of it. So when people started posting around that insane, letter that's just like, we demand the right to free speech and let us tell you a bunch of stories out of context about how people lost their jobs for just saying the truth.
Well, like, and what was funny about that letter, and by funny I mean horrifying, and it made me want to throw shit, is that like I was looking at the names of the people who signed that letter, and like I can't name names, but I personally know people who signed that letter tried to destroy. Like, I kid. They're private conversations and private forums.
To me later.
But like I saw
had to invoke Dr. Claw for a minute.
I was like, well, actually, you know what? This was in public. Actually, this happened on Twitter.
If this happened in public, you can.
Like Jesse Singal, for one. I mean,
he's a piece of shit.
He's got a special place in his heart for being shitty to trans folks.
We all know Jesse Singal just needs to not.
And he's one of the people who signed that letter, and I know people personally whose careers he tried to destroy.
Oh yeah, there are people there's when people are like get rid, when I hear people who are on the right who are like get rid of cancel culture, I'm like, you guys love cancel culture except when it's used against you. They all are a big fan of it. And as soon as someone tries to cancel them, they're like, let me try to cancel them. But they just don't want to be held accountable for their words or actions or thoughts. Like, that's all. It's not about never canceling anyone. It's about just never letting them be canceled and keeping the illusion that it's only them.
Well, and I feel like I want to get a psychology degree to understand this, because I don't understand the need to feel like you are the oppressed underdog in that, right? Because that's what the whole crux of cancel culture is, this idea that oh, I'm saying the things that nobody else will say, and people are coming after me for it, and hashtag unpopular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyways. I don't understand the need to be that person. Exactly. I see these types all the time that are like, I'm going to be edgy because I don't have an actual thought. And that's all I see. There are people in the skeptic community who I won't say here because I don't feel like getting that kind of heat. But there are so I have to name names, but you can't name names. Okay.
Well, you had a public one, so look, if I ever have a public
on Twitter,
if I have a public falling out with one of these people, I will. But there's one person who I know for a fact, and they used to get invited to more mainstream skeptic things, and now they're more of a mythicist person, if you know what I mean. But that's all we have to say. But there's no, it's like I see, and it's actually a woman who I'm referring to in this instance. But they watching that and watching someone who used to be and they are very smart. They're very highly educated. But I think they just saw, there's a space for very attractive women, very, intellectual women, to go out and like say the kind of controversial thing for clicks, on the I'm kind of flirting with the right, but not like that. They found a niche for themselves, and so they're like, I don't need skeptic speaking engagements anymore. And it's been very strange to watch that. I'm like, have you no shame? Do you have nothing that you ever stood for or that you wanted to impart to the world? Nah, they just wanted clicks. So it's
Angarad. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Strange question. Why do they have such an obsession with toilets? I'm 43 now and have never seen another person's genitals in the toilets.
That means you're not a creeper. Good for you.
Yeah, that is the question for the ages, my friend. Back in the days when I had a penis and used urinals, I still managed to never see another person's genitals in the bathroom.
And this is what I don't get. Like, so every time, like, I'm gonna guess, like, depending on, before when you presented as a male, did you ever use the women's bathroom just because too long of a line, whatever, needed to run into pee?
And never lines at men's bathrooms. Come on.
I don't know. Look, I don't know. I haven't been a man yet. There's still time. Who knows?
There is. Yeah, I encourage you to play around with that concept. It's lots of fun.
But no, like what I think is funny about people being so nuts about that, like a lot of women have definitely yelled, "Excuse me, a woman has to use the bathroom," and like guys are like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So I feel like if people are already aware that I'm me talk purdy
You're on a roll
today.
We have not even made it 30 minutes, friend.
I have had no caffeine yet today.
Oh, that's the problem. Okay, all right.
Like, so it's just no. This is just like I make my morning beverage is generally like just instant espresso powder because I am a lazy trash panda. This morning I just have not gotten around to that. This is iced tea from a Mio. So it's just, like I said, trash panda when it comes to my morning beverage. But like, this is the fact that I'm managing to get through this well on no caffeine. Doing pretty well. Now I completely forgot what I was saying. That's completely normal for me though. Like I could do that like on 3 Red Bulls. So where was that? Bathrooms. Oh yeah. So like I've definitely run into a man's bathroom and been like, "I'm sorry, the line is too long," and guys are like, "Yeah, that's fine." Like, why? And it amazes me that people think like, and most women I know have definitely run into a man's bathroom because same thing. There's a line, and there's never a problem. People are just like, "Yeah, you need to pee, fucking pee," and like,
well,
so,
and I think that goes back to why I think men should be as upset about this concept as everyone else is, because the idea inherent to that is that a man in that space, like in the women's restroom, for example, is inherently a threat, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this societal idea that like men are inherently dangerous, and if I was a man, I would be upset by that, and it's, and there's, the dynamics of oppression do make that different than like, like, well, if it's that way for women, why can't it be for men? It's like, it's not quite as simple as that. Oh my God, puppy.
Yeah, he was the puppy and the kitty were just sitting here being very nudgy. So I'm like, all right, it's about time to let the audience see the science dog. BTW as usual. If you would like to help me keep them vaccinated and fed, Patreon and PayPal are the ways to do that. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Plugging.
I think my wife just had lunch delivered, so you can hear my dog in the background.
Oh, what it's Wedge, right?
Yes, Wedge. Yeah.
He's so cute. It's funny because like I used to think that my dog was part Chihuahua, part Terrier. He's part Dachshund.
Oh yeah. So my dog is a full breed Dachshund.
So
He's
cute.
The best.
He's so adorable.
And Lillian, yes, I agree with you, which is why I mentioned it's far more complicated than just like, well, if it's that way for men, why can't it be for, like, far more complicated than that. But there's it's in the same the same vein as like when a dad is talking about his daughter, like, I'm ready to take a shotgun to any man that dates my daughter, because like, because, you know, every man is inherently dangerous, but also insulted to be told that he is. And and it's very context dependent, right? And yeah, like I said, if I was a man, I would be very upset by that. But that also comes back to the idea that women are inherently weak and in need of protection, which is also like, I mean, it's complicated because women statistically are more under threat, but also we shouldn't treat women like they are inherently weak and in need of protection, especially protection from men.
And also like, and also the thought that someone is going to go through all the things they need to do to transition just to get access to a women's room, because yes, this is the end game. This is the end game of all the. Yes, I went through. I had all the things chopped on and added on and injected just so I can now access a ladies' bathroom.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
that's why you did it, right?
I mean, I would absolutely love anyone who wants to do all of that to get access to whatever advantages trans femme folks supposedly have. Please go on HRT for 2 or 3 years to and just see what it's like. You know, if you're a man who wants to do that, go ahead and grow boobs, give up your reproductive capability, have all of the fat redistributed to your hips.
Oh my God.
All those sorts of things.
How weird is that process?
If you want to do that just so you can win at sports.
It's oh my God. How weird is that process of just having of basically going through puberty a second time? Like that's how it's described to me from a few of my other trans friends.
I mean, that's literally exactly what it is. And what's interesting about that is so I started hormones.
If there's anything you don't want to talk about, then obviously tell
me. I am far more likely to make you uncomfortable than you
are.
Oh
no. I have another trans girlfriend whose bottom surgery was botched, and I have seen all of the pictures of that.
That's right. I remember you telling me about that.
Oh yeah, it's Hannah did not have an easy go of that, and it's like that's why when I see friends that are going through various stages of this, I'm like, now look, this is rare, but I want to tell you about the story of a girl named Hannah. Yeah. But like so I'm happy that your surgery went much more successfully than hers did, because you've reported back you've reported back happiness as a result of your happiness.
Yes.
So I'm so happy for you.
Well, so what's interesting is I started hormones the first time like 5 years ago. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
And I mean, it literally is second puberty, right? Like it's just all of the things that estrogen based puberty does just like a few years later.
Yeah.
So, you know, that all happened. And then confluence of circumstances, my primary care doctor retired. I lost my health insurance. I ended up off of hormones for like a year.
Oh, Jesus. That's rough.
So I had like a mini menopause, which was cool.
Oh my.
Because post-surgery, right? I don't have testicles, so nothing in my body's producing testosterone. So I didn't have anything in my body producing sex hormones of any kind, really.
Whoa.
But yeah, it's so just probably 4 or 5 months ago, I got all of my stuff back together, started hormones again, and
so
then
you're doing injectable this time, right? Yes.
So I'm doing injectable this time, and now I'm having third puberty.
Is it more intense? Is it like what's different about it?
It's less intense because it's like the absorption is just better. And so my boobs are sore and growing again. More fat is redistributing. So like, even though I'm not gaining weight, my hips are getting bigger. It's just like fat moving out of other areas of my body into my hips. And my skin is so much nicer.
Yeah.
Like you can't tell from my face, because my face is an absolute shit show because it's been COVID.
You can't tell from my face just because I have so much makeup plastered on top of it. A few weeks ago, I had one of my like COVID based I need to eat everything in sight freakouts, and occasionally that makes acne happen. But it's like a bunch of my girlfriends who have transitioned, like same thing. They have perfect goddamn skin. Like I'm like, what hormones are you guys? Can I have whatever? Like, look, you guys get. It seems there's one advantage here, and it is perfect skin. Like there are lots of social shit things that come with this, but you get perfect goddamn skin.
There is like one or two, maybe 3 or 4 situations in life where you can pull hashtag trans privilege on something. And listen, I will take it when I can get it. It just doesn't happen often.
Erica Butler just asked, "How do I get my boobs to grow again?" There are surgeons.
There are surgeons.
Technically, technically you could put a woman, put a cis woman on hormones and the boobs would get bigger. I believe that like I know whenever I get put back on birth control pills, mine get bigger, but I don't know how much it would affect I don't think it would affect it to the degree that that putting someone on hormones for transitioning does.
Yeah, and I don't actually know this question, but I wouldn't imagine that taking blood work to check hormone levels is a typical thing for cis women to have done at the doctors, unless they suspect some problem.
Yeah, like I think I've had I've had a panel of my hormones done when at one point, like I was having, we're not sure if they were hot flashes or not, but like I was having what we could only describe as hot flashes because bodies are fun, aren't they? They're fun.
Yeah. And I've had hot flashes a couple of times in my life. I went off hormones before surgery.
Oh my God.
So that happened. And then when I went off hormones the second time, and when I went off hormones the second time, it was gradual because I knew I was running out. So I started taking my dose every other day instead of every day.
Man.
And so it happened slowly. So it didn't happen a lot and it wasn't super intense, but I definitely was like, hey, am I on fire? Is that a thing?
Oh no! Yeah, for me it was funny because like I didn't know what was happening because I would just suddenly feel really hot and my face would get flushed and I'm like, what? Eventually I'm like, all right, I need to go to the doctor to see if I'm going into early menopause because if I am, no babies, yes, but also hormone replacement therapy because at the time I was 36. I'm like, this is not okay. But like they take a hormone panel, they check your like one of the main things they check is your thyroid, and luckily everything was fine. And who knows why I was having what seemed to like, I took a few pictures because I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I'm not hallucinating. My face was bright red. I'm like, okay, I haven't lost my mind. It's just, I had what might have been a couple of but yeah, Jesus, that's just.
Well, and I'll tell you what's super rad is that when I started hormones the first time, I did pills. And actually, when I started the second time, I did pills for like the first month until I asked my doctor about switching to injectable, and almost entirely killed my libido.
Oh man.
And my thing is like, that sucks, but also like, I can't be pissed if I don't want it. Like, I can't miss something I don't want. And then I had some weirdness getting back into sexual activity after surgery. It still didn't have a ton of libido. So like it all worked and it was fun occasionally, but I never felt a super strong need to use it. But then when I started injecting estrogen instead of taking the pills, like flipping a fucking switch, just horny all the time.
You're like, it's like, hello, this new machinery that I have is now fully. The last part for the factory has arrived.
And
I'm so happy for you.
Well, and the thing that like puts just a little bit of a caveat on it is I also started an antidepressant recently, which is wonderful.
Nice.
Because I have pretty bad anxiety, and I saw a psychiatrist.
I feel you on that.
And I started Lexapro for my anxiety, which has done wonders for my anxiety. Good. But one of the side effects is that it can impair sexual function. So I got to work a little bit harder to get to the orgasm. But thankfully, because some people say they can't come at all. And I was just
No,
like,
that's
oh
I was
God,
about to say
that's
that's
terrible. Yeah.
I've been put on like I had one doctor ages I just had a couple of panic attacks after having a job loss under unusual
Hmm.
circumstances, I would say. And a doctor at an urgent care clinic who I'd never seen before put me on Paxil. Like I was like, dude, I just needed like 2 pills of Xanax because I'm having a bad week. Like that was
Right.
all and he's like, here, Paxil. I'm like, that's not how you prescribe antidepressants to someone who's like, what the? But yeah, yeah, that one, like, I remember just that was one side effect I remember from that was not being able to get things to the finish line. I was not a fan. I'm like, I will be off of this now. Thank you. Because
Yeah. Well, and I
yeah,
wasn't able to at all when, like, in the adjustment period in the first few weeks.
yeah.
And I was just like, oh man, I might not be able to stay on this. But
Oh,
thankfully, once I got
geez.
past the adjustment period, it's all
Yeah.
good. And
Like
it's yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm on Wellbutrin for depression, anxiety, and and for me, like the first 3 weeks are awful. It's like the first 3 weeks are just all right, batten down the hatches. My anxiety's gonna go through the roof, and I'm
Hmm.
gonna feel like shit the entire time. And then like there's like this first day where it's like, oh, I don't feel so bad anymore. And like it's just
Hmm.
it's after those 3 weeks, it's like this is a great drug for me because it increases your it's a dopamine and norepinephrine in reuptake inhibitor. So anything that gives me a little bit more dopamine because I probably have ADHD. So
The thing that I didn't expect, and my doctor didn't mention because I guess it's one of the rarer side effects, is the yawning fits.
oh yeah,
And I
that was
just
something
like,
Paxil did to me, and holy shit, it was
and
awful.
and I mean, like, I just did some cursory research. I might not even be remembering right, but I was reading and they were like, oh yeah, like it's not super common, but it happens because there's something about yawning that has to do with the serotonin system in
Yeah.
your body. They're connected somehow. And I was just like,
And of
I have
course,
been
that just made me yawn thinking.
yes, you're welcome.
Ah,
And I was
ah.
just like, oh my God, I can't stop yawning.
I
And
want
like,
to know
I
how
slept
if
really
you're in
well.
our audience and you just yawned reading that. I want you all out there, Callie. If you can, I can just give a performative yawn to see how many people in the audience will just yawn from it. Can we just yawn together to
Yeah, absolutely.
just let's give it a big like. All right, just tell us if you yawned. We need to know. This is science, people. It's science. It's a big old yawn. Oh man. But yeah, that one definitely hit me. And I remember it like hurting because it was like, ah yes, somebody yawned. Thank
Nice.
you. Thank you.
I
Thank you.
well, so the weird thing for me was that the yawns actually felt really good. It was like it was
That's
almost like
funny.
it was like having a body high for like 5 or 10 seconds.
Oh man.
And it was like, I just like take that deep intake of breath, which, like, I mean, generally if you take a deep breath, like that usually feels good on its own, but then there would just be like this wave of good feeling that kind of like radiated down my body for like 5 or 10 seconds. And I was like, maybe I hope this doesn't stop. But also
You've tapped into something that's like this extra.
yeah.
It's a bunch for because we have people watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope. For everyone watching on the other platforms, we have a bunch of comments coming in on Facebook saying that they yawned. So yes, it's we have done what we came here to do. We have psychologically manipulated all of you. You are
Did
now
the science.
you are now our subjects for this science. I wanted to do an evil maniacal laugh, but I didn't have it in me. I'm sorry.
You failed. Get
I
out.
fine. I had nowhere to go. But I still have a cute puppy sitting here next to me who's like, Mom, why did you plop down on top of me? He's just
Oh, God,
he's just
baby.
he's so annoying. He is as I like to say, he is as cute as he is stupid. And I mean, look at how cute he is. I mean, Mike, he looks like a retriever combined with, and sorry to make this topical, but he looks like a retriever combined with Dobby. Right? He kind of like he has this kind of Master has given Dobby clothes. Dobby is free of J.K. Rowling. Like maybe
God.
like we should all start a fund to get all the house elves clothes so that they can get away from J.K. Rowling. the house elves that don't exist in a universe that isn't real, but still. Just...
My baby has been calming down lately, which is nice because he's a dachshund and has that dachshund energy.
Oh yeah,
which is why I'm like,
puppy energy.
I would love to go grab him and bring him on the stream, but as soon as I got rid of him, he would be freaking the hell out to get right back to me.
We're very pro. We want to see your animal show. Like
So let's do this. When we're coming up to the last 5 minutes, I will run and grab the puppy.
Yeah,
we can see the puppy.
Such a cute dog.
He is the best.
It's what is very cute, very cute.
And so we had our basement flooded about a year ago, and we finally got carpet put in the basement again. And
you are a brave human.
He is just so in love with the basement now. And he's like, I mean, we let him run around a bunch, but for some reason running around in the basement feels different. And so he's been running around a whole bunch more. And so he's been chilled out. And so when my wife and I were having lunch, I finished eating and he just hopped up on my lap and he was just hanging out right here and he just laid down. Normally he's all up in my face, licking at me, pawing at me, trying to get me to play with him. But he was just so chill. I love him.
Let's see, going through a few of the comments. Fundraiser to freeze the house elves that actually goes to the trans community. I'm like, I could just pull. I could try to pull an H-bomber guy and try to beat an old video game for as long as it takes and see how much money we could get thrown into something. Do you follow H-bomber guy on YouTube?
No, I mean I did hear the one story about the stream that just got huge and AOC showed up and stuff.
Oh my god, it's we've started as my husband and I I think my husband's a supporter of his on Patreon, and we just watch all of his videos, but that thing went for an entire weekend. It ended up raising over $300,000. He was like, yeah, I'll be I think he said something I'll be happy if it raises a couple $100, and just it blew up. So it's now whenever I have a tiny little fundraiser here, I'm I had one for Beirut relief, and I was really happy with the results. I'm it raised about $7,000, and I'm nothing's ever gonna compare to that fucking stream. But it's anything that you can do to get money to people who really need it is helpful. But still, he basically funded a charity, all the money that the government was going to send to them that didn't, I think, because of an article from fucking Jesse Singal, of all bringing this back around.
It was for mermaids, right? The UK
charity? Yeah. It's the charity for trans youth. Yeah, and he it's all because of not Jesse Singal, Graham Linehan. That was it. Another charmer.
Another one of our favorite people.
Another favorite person. But he basically funded everything that the government was going to give them. Mm-hmm. So, and then I think they actually got the government funding back because they were well, we guess people want this charity after all. So,
yeah, it feels like it's a special kind of hell living in the UK as a trans person, because most of the terrible turfy stuff is coming from there.
Yeah,
and that's not to say that we don't have our own terrible transphobes here in the US, but it feels like it feels like that the UK is the major exporter.
Which is strange. I mean, part of me and I get it. I lived there long enough ago that this, a lot of it's in 2009. I don't remember how much, or wait, no, I was there 2006, 2007. I don't remember how much awareness or how much, trans people were not having, shall we say, a moment in our public consciousness yet, and I don't know how much that was circulating in terms of who are we hating now in England? It didn't seem to be a thing. So maybe I'm sitting here going, it's changed a lot, but also because trans people weren't having a moment in the hey, we're trying to push past being marginalized towards being accepted, towards being part. But I keep trying to go back to, this wasn't like it when I was there. Yvette, it's been 14 years. It's been a while. You're not in grad school anymore. You're not using preventative Botox anymore. You're using it because you have those wrinkles.
Mm-hmm. And there's a conversation to be had there about how like visibility and representation are not always entirely positive things, right? You know, I listened to a podcast interview with a community activist and organizer, and I feel terrible because I forget her name. But she was kind of talking about how, you know, people say like, you know, trans people are having a moment, and she was like, a specific kind of white trans person is having a moment.
Oh,
and
right.
And you know, things have gotten better for certain kinds of trans folks, but in some ways it's actually gotten worse for Black trans women specifically. And she was like, why do you think that is? And she was like, well, because they know where we are now. Like, they know about us, and so now we have targets on our backs where we didn't before. And that's like, that's an unsolvable problem, right? Because if we act like these folks don't exist, we can't do anything to make the world a better place for them. But also the more we're like, hey, check out these people over here, like that, I mean, it does put a target on their backs, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard, because that's, I mean, I think that's exactly where that renewed vitriol has come from, is that visibility, right? And so like, you know, somebody like me, you know, and I'm pretty privileged, like, my wife and I both make okay money. Like, we own a house, we have health insurance, you know, that kind of stuff. And so like, you know, the worst of the worst stuff I'm kind of insulated from. Like, I don't have to interact with like public health, for example. Like, you know, you go to free clinics and stuff like that. And like, when you talk about trans folks being mistreated in healthcare, like, it happens everywhere for sure. Yeah. But like, you know, my insurance will pay for me to go to a big corporate hospital where they've probably at least had a training to let people know that trans folks exist. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's Doug Ricard just asked, is that a MAGA hat? I'm going to guess it's not a MAGA hat.
Not a MAGA hat.
What type of, it's, if you can give us a turn so we can see what it is. Aha! It is Starfleet Academy.
Starfleet Academy Command Division.
Nice. It's, I was about to say, don't, Doug, you're a regular here. Don't even, no, that's not, don't suggest.
And I'm not even a fan of, I'm not even a fan of the like, hey, this looks like a MAGA hat, but it's really not. Made you look. I'm not really a fan of those either.
No, it's like, he's ruined red hats for a generation. Like, I'm a Red Sox fan. I have red Sox. I'm like, no, I'm just converting all over to blue ones now.
Well, and I mean, I live in Cincinnati, and the Cincinnati Reds red color is very close to the MAGA hat red color. And so it's sometimes hard to tell the difference.
Yeah. So there's a really good question here for you from Leslie Wicker, one of our regular commenters. Callie, you're giving a TED Talk about how to be the best ally for the trans community. What are your major bullet points?
Ooh, that's good. So I think
I'm taking notes.
I think number one is you have to learn to sit in being uncomfortable, because you're going to screw up. You've got really bad ideas to unlearn. You're going to hurt someone. You're going to make someone angry, and you have to learn to sit with that instead of centering yourself and your feelings in those situations. I think that's probably number one. Recognizing that these problems do in fact exist, and probably in places that you don't currently think they do. And I mean, honestly, I think that goes for any sort of marginalized group of people. Like, you know, if you're not a person of color and you think like, oh, like this space that I'm in, isn't that racist? Like, it probably is. And you know, so on in terms of like homophobia, transphobia, that kind of stuff. And I think something that is the most annoying for me to deal with is when I relate something like, oh yeah, this happens to me all the time. And people are like, yeah, but what about, like, as if I hadn't actually considered the question before. And so something that like, cause obviously like being a non-binary person, but also being white, I fall on both sides of the spectrum quite often. Like, there are times when it's my turn to shut the hell up and listen and get over my own biases and get over the bubble that I live in. But then there are times where it's like I turn around and I'm the person telling people to do that in terms of who I am, right? Yeah. And what I have really tried hard to learn to do is when someone a person of color specifically says something that I think like, oh, there's no way. Like that is my cue that I have that I have something to unlearn and I have knowledge to gain. Not that like, oh, well, this person's just being ridiculous. Like, and that's not to say that like every person of color has good ideas about racism, because there are Republicans and Trump fans and you know,
they exist.
Yeah. And they're like Trump fans that are trans folks and that kind of stuff. And so, you know, it's more complicated than that. Right.
Yeah.
But the point is I think we have to work really hard to get over that idea of when someone says something that runs up against your preconceptions and you find yourself thinking like, oh, that person's just being ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think we really, really have to cultivate the feeling of, I really need to look at this. I need to take it seriously. I need to try and understand what's happening and understand what this person is saying before I dismiss it. And I think those would probably be the major points. And I could probably talk for hours about all of those points. But like, if we're talking about the major bullet points, I think that's probably the thing. Oh, and use your power. Because I think there are a lot of people who don't think they have power, but do. And that can be as simple as policing your bigoted family members on your Facebook page. And it can be as big as you're the supervisor of a department at work, you're a manager at work, those kinds of things. Like, it's really, really important to consider the spheres of influence you have and the power you have and the space that you have. You know, maybe you're not going to be the person who passes a new law that helps things or something like that. But like, if you can make your immediate space unsafe for bigotry using the sphere of influence that you have and the power that you have, you know, by like not tolerating racist, homophobic, or transphobic or sexist jokes, for example, right? Like, you can be the person in the room not laughing when the person says a sexist joke, like that kind of thing. So yeah, consider the power and the influence that you have and figure out ways to wield it, to wield it for good, but two, also to give it up to people who could benefit from it.
I'll go to that TED Talk. No, I mean, it's like, it is, it's hard to hear, hey, you might have been part of the problem, but it's not like, don't worry about it. We can fix it. Just sit down and chill out and listen for a bit. Like, it's hard to hear that sometimes. Like, I think some of the things that I had to unlearn about, like, I don't know if that's the right phrase for me to use. Like, learning it was hard, I think, to learn about non-binary people first, because that was like, all right, I just learned about trans people, now there's another paradigm I have to go through. And it took like, and I, how to phrase this, I'm not an asshole, so I didn't go Joanne on it. I waited to learn things, like, and that was just, it's like, you know what, people are, I think the best way to, or at least the way I've looked at it while this is coming to the public consciousness a little bit, has been, all right, while I don't understand things, instead of jumping straight to bigotry and screaming, I don't know what this is, so I'm going to be mad and make their lives miserable, is go, well, someone's probably really experiencing this if they're willing to stand on this and go, I know my life is getting more difficult because of this, but I feel this internally strongly enough that I'm still going to do it. So it's up to me to probably try to be empathetic enough to learn about it a bit. And it's, of all things, Dr. Abby Hafer, who is in the skeptic movement, she gives talks on how on being trans, on being gender fluid, on being gender non-binary, gender non-binary all exist throughout the animal kingdom. And like, that kind wonderful.
I love that
blew my mind. And I was like, oh, everything I thought I knew about gender was wrong, and this is completely normal. And I've linked to it on Sci-Fi before, and it was a wonderful talk that kind of made it, I don't know if okay in my head is the right phrase, but it made it all make sense. And it's like, all right, here's what you can do if you're not sure about, if you're like, I just don't know what all this is. Go get educated on it. Like, there are plenty of resources showing how this is a completely, like, this is something that's always been with us. This is just kind of part of how humans are. There are lots of variations between man and woman. So there's we contain multitudes.
We do indeed. Yeah. My life just got so much easier when my default became, oh, so you're telling me that this is your experience and this is who you are. Okay.
Nice.
Just like, leaving it at that. And like, trying to figure out if that means anything for how I want to treat that person in terms of like what their pronouns are, or like, what kind of gendered language to use or not use, which I kind of default to non-gendered language now anyways, but like, previous to that. And like, I really try to have empathy and understanding for that, because I am proud of that open-mindedness that I have now, but I have certainly not always been that way.
Yeah. I think I think none of us are like as open-minded when we were younger as we like to think we might have been when we're adults. Because I look back and go, I definitely said some things when I was a kid that make me glad there was no internet, or there was less internet.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Like I used to have some really terrible ideas about race. Like, I was a lower middle class suburban white kid with the racist views to match, right? Like, and I'll be frank, like it took me coming out as trans to start to see outside of that bubble, because I realized like, oh wow, this experience of mine is way more complicated than society has told me my experience of gender is. And then I would start seeing echoes of that same concept when people were talking about racism. And I'm like, wait a minute, I have heard this argument before. Like, and that's not to say that like homophobia, transphobia, and racism are the same thing. They're obviously not, but like there are echoes of the way that those conversations play out that I was like, oh shit, like I really need to listen more closely to these folks when they tell me what's going on. Just like I wish people would listen more closely to me when I talk about gender stuff. Right. And so like, I don't engage with trolls and assholes or anything like that, but like,
and I'm so happy there haven't been any trolls today. Thank you. It's like it's hit or miss, like because this since I've started broadcasting out to a handful of different platforms, like there are almost always like, if there's going to be a troll, it's going to be one from YouTube or Periscope, and none today. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for being fucking awesome. I love wonderful. You. I want to. It's at some point we're going to have to lick you all, which means you know what it's time for, right? It's time for a shall we have a screen lick together, my friend Callie?
I think I'm up for this.
Let's have a screen lick.
Let's do it.
Oh, that was hot.
Beautiful.
Oh man, beautiful. I'm having a good day, guys. We've had this whole thing started as a this whole thing started as a joke to see if we could catch the COVID via the internet, and we're still trying. Let's see, Patterson just commented, give the people what they want. So we're
happy to deliver.
We do what we can. Me and my kitty ears are here to lick. Look, we got a constitutional attorney to lick the screen on Friday. So we had Andrew Seidel on, and I was almost like, look, because he like when he came on, I'm like, oh shit, we're having a real adult on. How am I gonna do? Because and it's like it's funny because like you chat with him and he's like, oh no, it's fun. But I'm like, I look at his resume and go, real adult. I look at him when we hang out and I'm like, yeah, he's just a schmuck like me. But like I'm like, could I have a constitutional lawyer lick the screen? Is that a thing you can do? But nah, he was cool. It's
been stream. You do what the hell you want.
I had my doctor who fixed my headaches on. He licks the screen. So far there have been no refusals. So fingers crossed we will keep having screen licks.
I like it when people like fun.
Indeed. Star Starling said yay for non-binary screen licks. We will have I will have by the end of the show, I will have every possible gender licking the screen. That is now a goal. So Steve said it's become my side babe live stream catchphrase. Which one's become the catchphrase? They give the people what they want. Got it. Dan Keeling, side babe, do you have guests planned for all of these going forward? I have guests lined up for almost every show until the end of October.
Is it time for me to get the puppy? By the way,
I was about to say we've got a little more time to chat. I figure we'll try to wrap up in about 10 minutes, give or take.
Cool.
But yeah, like about 5 or 10 minutes grabbing a puppy. But yeah, I have a lot of guests next week. Is my friend Jamila Bey, who has been a journalist with NPR, with Al Jazeera America, with all over the place next week, and we have a lot of things to talk about. I believe next week we will not be having a Friday live stream. We'll be having it on Wednesday, because the person I could get, Seth Andrews from The Thinking Atheist, he could only make it for Wednesday. So when I might do a Friday night, quick little just me Q&A, because I also have, it's also Saturday is going to be the patron only live stream next week. So lots of stuff happening, but let's see, I believe the week after that is Thomas Smith, from Opening Arguments. Just
gosh, I love Thomas.
Yeah. Thomas is fantastic. I was excited that that was where I was like, I can get Callie. I just put a status message up on my personal page and said, hey, who's also a podcaster slash everything else, is willing / able to come, who's a SciComm, is willing / able to come do my very silly thing. Cara Santa Maria, from Talk Nerdy to Me, said she'd be interested. So I'm like, I need to shoot her a message. So there are lots of people that I want to get on here. So
you specifically requested gifts with multiple cats.
Yes. When I was like,
it's delightful.
I was like, if you want to be on my show, I want gifts with at least I want a gift with at least 2 cats. Some people could only put a gift with 1 cat, and I'm like, man, this was not take all the green M&Ms out of the package. This was a really easy request.
I was gonna say, how can you expect to do a live stream if you can't even follow the most simple directions?
Like, this is me checking to see if you're going to show up without a microphone, dude. This is I need to know what you're going to bring to the table, and if it's going to involve cats. But it was just funny watching I gave my friend Dan was like, hey, I science online sometimes, and I'm like, where are your cats, Dan? He's like, I gave you what I gave you. So, like, you get what you get. If you want me, you know where my cats are. My cats are elsewhere on the internet.
I'm happy to provide cat gifts. I don't have a real life cat to provide, unfortunately. I do enjoy cats though.
Cat gifts are fine. I will take cats. I have 3 cats, and it's funny. Like, this is like my I am renovating. So I live in an unfinished attic in an old Victorian in LA, and this is like my office corner of it. Like, when we moved in, it was a space formerly occupied by a hoarder.
Yeah, I worked for 1-800 Got Junk for a minute, so I cleaned out hoarder houses. And it's a lot.
You've seen jars of urine before, I'm sure. Yeah. I cleaned that shit out. Right, shit, I mean piss. I've seen things this year, my friend. It was.
I cleaned up an older person's used diapers from the floor of their apartment.
We found no diapers, but this is a large space that we're getting for. This is how I know I will do a lot of things for cheap rent, other than working for a better apartment. But this was like, so I mean, this is like, it's a large space on this floor, but we had to clean out so much. We filled 2 17 by 8 by 6 foot dumpsters, and there was still more trash, still more, and that was just. Like, we came to the point where we had a joke where there was 4 of everything: an old one, a new one, a broken one, and an updated one. And that was true. Like, we were joking, but it was 3 or 4 of everything. Like, sometimes there was no upgraded one, but there was at least, like, you'd find one specific model of computer or software or whatever it was. There would be just 4 of it. We extricated a family of possums. Yeah, possums. I cleaned urine off the wall, because there are 2 lofts. I'm sitting underneath one of them, and he lived in one of the lofts, and like down below was just where all his shit was. And he had a mattress. He was at the point where he was not able to manage his bodily fluids anymore. The mattress and the floorboard on one of the lofts just had to be scrubbed. The mattress was chucked, obviously, but I sat there a scrubbing. I was wearing a hazmat suit for some of the screen.
Of course.
You said you picked up diapers. The grossest thing I got, it wasn't diapers, but he was one of the 4 owners of this house. And now it's in a trust and it's in weird situation. But anyways, I cleaned out the closet, and found the last hamper full of clothes that he'd left here before he moved downstairs. And it smelled over 10 years later, of both body odor and of human soiling.
Oh, God.
A decade, and it still smelled. A decade.
We are such an abject fucking failure as a society that, like, we can't... Because I don't...
Oh, man.
Like, we let that kind of thing happen to someone who like is obviously in need of medical care at the very least, mental health care for sure, and like we are just such a fucking failure as a society that like we can't take care of folks who need that.
And here's the thing: he lived with people. He had he had money and medical insurance, and it's like I think. It's hard to figure out with what happened to this particular man, like if this was like, because he eventually moved into, like when I moved in here, he was still alive. He was just living in like an assisted living facility. And I'm like, did he choose to move in there then? Like how was him shitting himself on a daily basis and walking with the shit dragging behind him on the floor to the bathroom? How was that allowed to continue to happen in this house? I do not know, but like we do need a better safety net, to say the least, because that isn't a thing that like in other countries, it's like, oh, you have a person who's not able to take care of themselves anymore. We have people for that. We will take care of the elder. Like, we understand.
The lady specifically that I was talking about as we were there, because I mean we were at her apartment the entire day, and we got to know her a little bit, and just a super super sweet older lady. And turns out, like it is for lots of folks, it was a really, really deep trauma that she hadn't healed from. It was she had lost, I think it was like she lost her brother and her best friend in the same month. And then like a month later, somebody broke in her back door and tried to kill her. And she's like, so I just started letting all this stuff pile up in front of my door so nobody could get into my apartment. And it got out of hand, and I was like, well, shit. And I was like, we don't have a safety net for someone like that who has like such deep trauma and is going to need help and assistance healing from that. Like that is not a personal failing on her part. That is a failing on us as a society, that like people who have those needs don't generally have anywhere to go to get them addressed unless they have a shit ton of money or get really, really lucky.
Yeah, it's like unless someone like that would need to have a family that could just like pick her up out of the depths of her despair. Like that's, where do you go when you can't, like it's people say, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. What if you don't have bootstraps? What if you have, it's like everyone has the same ladder to climb. What if my ladder has broken rungs? Mm-hmm. What if I lost my ladder? So
yeah, that's because, aside from my podcast, I also produce, edit, and mix podcasts for other people. And so like I'm in a bunch of different podcast groups, and like the whole like positive mindset, good vibes only thing is like rampant in that. And one of my favorite phrases to hate in that world is like, we've all got the same 24 hours in a day. And it's like, that's not true. No. If you've got enough money to hire somebody to mow your lawn, to clean your house, to take care of your kids, all of that sort of stuff, like you actually have more hours in the day than other people do. So God, I hate that.
Oh yeah, no, it's there's some of we all have 24 hours. Some of us just have a way to add on to it.
And it's so funny too, because like people are like, "What's your secret?" And like the secret so often comes down to, I had enough money to hire somebody to pay them to do the stuff I don't want to do. That's the secret to my success.
Secret outsourcing and getting rich off other people's labor. Hashtag capitalism is the downfall of us all.
I found someone who will do this job for $8 an hour.
And then I will make much profit off of it. So sorry, we're just flip. Now here is where we'll start getting into things that will make people angry when we start talking about economic theory. It's like it's the Syvav and Callie start talking about communism power hour, and this is and this is where the cancellations really start.
Oh shit!
Oh,
Right? God.
anyways, so let's wrap this up with some, shall we say, some final thoughts on Joanne, because unfortunately we have to, like, here's the thing. What how does someone relate to Harry Potter now? Because we, like, more than likely, if you're an adult, you already have the books. It's you're like, you've probably, like, I have a friend who posted the other night that they were and it was the day that that we found out Joanne had a new book. They posted that they were reading Harry Potter to their kids for the first time, and they've been dreaming about doing that for decades, of course. And I'm like, man, and I know this is a progressive person who is, of course, probably, concerned with Joanne's issues. And I wonder, like, how do we relate to these things? Because it's, because this is, even though we can have death of the author where we don't think about the author at all, this is still kind of a living document, because she's still randomly letting us know that characters are gay, or that they or that they had a limp in childhood, or whatever that she's giving characters post hoc to let us know how progressive she actually is.
Yeah, and this is hard for me because I have a lot of friends who say that they're just not able to engage with Harry Potter at all anymore. Like, it's been poisoned for them. Yeah. But I've seen a lot of people say things like, Harry Potter saved my life. I can't just stop loving Harry Potter because the person who wrote it's an asshole. And I support both sides of that energy with all serious respect. And like I said, Harry Potter is not quite as close to me, just because that fandom just kind of missed me,
Yeah.
But I think about, like, Star Trek. Star Trek is far from perfect. Like, there's an episode of the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation that is wildly, horrifically racist. And then, like, to a lesser degree, there's racist stuff. There's some pretty terrible ableism in Deep Space Nine. There's some sexism in the original series. Gene Roddenberry legendarily was not the most gentlemanly of folks. And so, like, this is not to be me standing on a pedestal telling other people what they can and can't do with their fandoms. I think the only thing that I would say definitively is that if you're not at least struggling with the question and rolling it over in your head, I think that's the only way to do it wrong, is to just dismiss it like it doesn't matter at all, because it very much does. I think we need to seriously consider things that give her money, it was absolutely wild to see Twitter going absolutely nuts over how terrible J.K. Rowling was one day, and the next day, so many of those same people so stoked to buy this new Harry Potter game that she's going to get paid royalties from. And I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing?
What? I didn't even know there was a new game.
Yeah, it's like a new open world. Like, I don't know if it's an MMO. I just remember it's like an open world type Harry Potter game.
I have so many open world games I'm behind on playing. Pass.
And like, and there are people who are trying to do things more ethically, like buying the books secondhand, for example, or like only engaging with, like, fan fiction and like the fan created part of the universe. I think that's cool. Like, I'm into that.
I would say there are, like, because the books, they really, it's really easy to pick these books apart to the point where, because of the various, they do have some issues, like, we can go back and talk about the Gringotts bankers, and there are a bunch of random little things that she put in there that are like, man, you made that as stereotyped as you possibly could have. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Overall, there's some well-written books with some good, some decent messages in there, and you can, if you want to still, like, if you want to still read them to your kids or still have them as a part of your kids' lives, there are definitely used copies to be bought all over the place, and more than likely, if you read them, you probably still have your own copy, so you don't need to buy another one. You don't need to give her more money, and you can kind of try to death of the author this and just ignore the greater universe of this. As to if your kids are like, but I want to go to Hogwarts at Universal, I can't answer that for you.
Yeah, well, and I honestly, I don't really believe in death of the author, because I think we have to critically engage with the things that we love, even if they're things that seem superfluous. Like, they are not superfluous, right? Like, it's our culture, because so much of our culture is defined by our pop culture and our fandoms and that kind of stuff. And I think those things have to be talked about and have to be discussed, and that doesn't mean that you have to say, well, fuck Harry Potter, I'm done with it forever because J.K. Rowling is terrible, right? Like, I'm not here to tell anybody that that's what they have to do or that's what they should do. I think really the only definitively wrong way to do it is to ignore it completely. And then I think as a broader society, we need to have more of a conversation about hero worship and putting people on pedestals in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Because like, how far down does it go, right? Like, with a book series and a world that is largely associated with one person, that's a little easier, right?
Yeah.
But like, say Star Trek, for example, right? Like, Gene Roddenberry, not the greatest guy. Most of Star Trek has happened without him, but he's the one who created it. So how inherently tied up with that is he? And how much do we have to tie, him as a person into that? And it's like, I mean, music too, right? Like, how many musicians have been, and like,
just how many musicians in the 60s married 15-year-olds or banged a cousin? I'm just saying, we have to get rid of a lot of music if we have to get rid of everyone who is problematic.
Exactly. And again, like, that's not to say that it doesn't matter. But that is to say that, like, that's something that we have to talk about, we have to think about, and we have to consider. And I think, like I said, the only definitive way to do it wrong is to act like it doesn't matter. Aside from that, like, there are problematic faves that I have, and there are people that I have stopped engaging with completely, because those are lines that I've drawn personally. But I also, like, there's a band, used to be one of my favorite bands in the world, called Brand New. They were like one of the, like, emo pioneer kind of bands. And, Deja Entendu, one of their albums was like the soundtrack of my early 20s,
Nice.
And some of my favorite songs ever. But, like, turns out the singer is a sexual predator.
Oh,
and I mean, that just ruined the music for me. Like, I can't listen to it anymore. Even if I could listen to it without giving up, because, like, I have their albums on vinyl, so, like, I can listen to the music without giving them streaming revenue, But when I think about, like, oh, he wrote a breakup song, I wonder what he did to that girl that he wrote.
God, that's awful.
But I think, like, if you still listen to Brand New, I don't necessarily think that you're a shit person, but you probably should engage with that in a way that is sensitive to people who could be hurt by that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that kind of thing. So
that's just, oh my God. Yeah. That's a good, just
is it puppy time?
It is puppy time.
I'm gonna go grab a puppy.
We're gonna have some puppy
BRB.
time. BRB. Callie is BRBing. So thank you guys. Thank you guys all for hanging out with us. It's been a good. I'm so glad that we got Callie on to talk about this, because it's, to say the least, the issue with Joanne has been problematic and has been getting worse for a while. So I wanted to have someone on who talks about this on their show, and who I could trust to come on and have a good conversation. So I feel very, very lucky that we got to have Callie on today. So that was a good time. And now we have two tiny puppers. Anyways, if you, it's, all the lickies, all the
this
tiny
is Wedge. Say hi, buddy.
Buddy, say hi, Wedge.
Say hi.
Hello. Oh, hold on. We're gonna take the caption right off the screen so that we can just see more animal. Buddy's like, Mom, I was napping.
You're a star, buddy. Look.
Oh, hi. This is, I'm screen capping this. There we go. Oh, buddy. What you doing? So much cuteness in one shot. Indeed. Mwah! Hello. So, anyways, thank you. Somebody asked, what is he named for Wedge Antilles?
So there's a bit of a story there. If we've got
let's hear it.
a minute. Okay,
Of course. Don't worry. It goes for 2 hours half the time.
Yeah,
so.
Okay, yeah. So we knew we were getting him, and Celeste and I are laying in bed trying to figure out a name.
Aww.
And she said, "What about Wedge?" And I was like, "Oh, a tiny little dachshund named Wedge. That would be really cute." But neither of us are huge Star Wars fans. Like, we both like and love Star Wars, but it's neither of our like first fandom, right? And she goes, "No, that's not a Star Wars name. That's a Final Fantasy name." And I was like, "Babe, that's definitely a Star Wars name." And we went back and forth for a minute, and she's like, "Hang on a second, I'm going to prove it to you." So she pulls out her phone and pulls out this YouTube video, and it's a thing about these joke characters from Final Fantasy named Biggs and Wedge that show up in most of the Final Fantasy games as comic relief. And one of the first things is like, "Oh yeah, like this is a callback to Star Wars." And she's like, "Oh, I had no idea that it was Star Wars." But at that point, I'm like, well, tiny little pupper named Wedge. I feel like that's adorable. So we're going to do it anyways.
I'm pretending that Buddy is looking at Wedge right now with the way he's leaning. They're trying to stare at each other through the ether.
So it's a Final Fantasy reference that's a Star Wars reference.
Duh. Anyways, they're so cute. A couple people are like, I must go adopt right now. Anyways, I love you guys all. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, Callie. Where can people find you and your podcast?
Yeah, so I'm at Callie Gets It on Twitter. My podcast is called Queersplaining. You can find it on any of the podcast apps or at queersplaining.com.
Nice. And as usual, thank you guys for hanging out with us. I know that things are perilous right now. That is just such a cute pupper. I know the universe is a horrible, perilous, crazy, fucked up place right now. Hey, there's good news. California is less burning right now. The air in LA feels safe-ish to breathe.
We like breathing. Yay, breathing.
Breathing. The air is only trying to kill us with COVID-19. Things are a little bit. So
baby steps.
At least the air is only trying to kill us one way right now. So it's an improvement. I hope you guys and your kids are safe with everyone going back to school right now. I know that places are. I hope you guys are all safe. That you guys are all managing to get your kids to wear their masks at school. Please keep washing your hands, wear your masks, taking care of yourselves and your loved ones. I love you all. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you guys later this week. Bye.